What is more effective, a prison sentence or a scolding from parents after a 14-year-old boy was handed to police by his parents for his involvement in the Southport riots? The Director of Public Prosecution, Stephen Parker, decided on the latter, the scolding from the parents. The CPS concluded that the parental punishment that the boy received was more effective than any action the criminal justice system would have taken, and he was able to walk free. So what do we think about that? How common is it? We're joined by Chris Daw KC, who's a barrister at Millennium Chambers and author of Justice on Trial. Good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning.
Have you heard of this happening before?
Yes, not enough, unfortunately. We know that the DPP also announced that I think 49 children have been charged criminally and taken to the criminal courts in relation to rioting after the tragic events at Southport. But yes, for many, many years, and indeed since time began, one of the considerations for prosecution of any individual, but particularly young children, has been whether it's in the public interest to prosecute them or not. And the public interest is quite a broad concept, but basically the idea is what is going to be more effective at protecting the public and ensuring that the child doesn't reoffend. And in this case, the CPS took the decision that that the parents' intervention and the parents' actions had created a much more significant life lesson for the young person involved than would have been taking it to the criminal courts, where most young people end up as adult criminals once they've been through the youth justice system, and that's where the problem arises.
So it must have been a heck of a scolding.
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because the way in which the DPP explained it was that I think he used the word, the wrath of the parents was much more effective than anything that the criminal justice system could achieve. And as a result of that, the decision was taken not to prosecute. But if you analyse that even for a moment or two, he also then goes on to explain that a number of parents thought that going on the riots was, quote unquote, a day out and was some form of entertainment for them and their children. Now, what we're seeing is that those parents with that attitude, their children are being prosecuted, whereas this young man whose parents took a very different and much stricter view is not being prosecuted. So let's just think about what that means. That means that if your parents are effective, strong disciplinarians who take these kind of things seriously, you'll be fine. You'll walk away from the criminal courts and you won't have a criminal record. But if your parents are completely irresponsible and treat it as a joke to go out rioting and throwing bottles at the police, you as a 12 or 13-year-old will end up as a criminal in the criminal courts. And that, to me, fundamentally seems unfair to children who, one set of children have been fairly well parented on the face of it. They walk away with no consequence. But those who are poorly parented get punished by the criminal justice system. How's that fair when you're dealing with a young child?
Yeah. Well, people will, yourself, Chris, there are people who are still have firm views who just believe that, well, if you commit a crime, no matter really, that you should go through the kind of criminal justice system and there should be some kind of a custodial sentence or suspended sentence or a record of sorts, and other people who think there shouldn't be. I'm just interested really in this 14-year-old boy. Will he have any kind of criminal record or not?
No, he won't, because he's not being criminally charged or cautioned, as I understand it. The decision was taken that he could be diverted from the criminal justice process. His parents would ensure that he behaved himself in the future, and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And frankly, 99.9% of children who transgress the criminal law and are arrested or caught up in crime of some kind, if they were diverted from the criminal courts and the criminal justice system, and in particular if they were diverted from young offenders institutions and custodial sentences, would go on to live lawful and law-abiding adult lives. It's the ones you would lock up as teenagers that are overwhelmingly responsible for so much crime when they grow up.
Yeah.
And so you've got to ask yourself, what's our aim here? Is it to reduce crime or to make a point about punishment? Yeah. We've got to make our choice.
It's really interesting. Chris, thank you. Chris Daw KC, barrister at Millennium Chambers and author of Justice on Trial.